But there are mixed signals because I do know that successive administrations have successive administrations plus the amount of red tape that is involved in Dominica. In the case of a Dominican wanting to come home and make a contribution, a lot of Dominicans have tried that and been discouraged. I have said to myself over the years that I think it's only when Dominica's back is really scraping against the wall that Dominicans at home will realize the importance of Dominicans abroad. And not only that, I personally think that the only way Dominica can move forward is with the input of Dominicans abroad. You made a very good point a while ago when you said that Dominicans at home have this apathy towards Dominicans abroad. This is very true. I would like to know what is your administration going to do to cut short the red tape and to avoid sending wrong or mixed signals. Because I do know of a Dominican who left here after being many years here and went home to Dominica to place back the manager of the National Bank, who was dismissed from his position. The details of that I don't know, but what I'm saying is these things send signals to Dominicans abroad that make people skeptical. So I want to know what your administration has in plan to subvert all these red tape, all these roadblocks, and all these discouraging things that people have to face when they come back to contribute to their country's development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Iran. In my address to the nation, I also indicated that we are aware of the bureaucratic, or what is described as a bureaucratic red tape. And I did indicate here that it may appear that it is easy to manage it, but it is extremely difficult to manage it. However, I did indicate that we want to find ways, not exactly to circumvent the process, but to allow it to take place with the greatest ease so that people do not experience frustration. Because if you're used to operating at a certain pace and then you come home, you are sent over there and return there, it's not done properly or it is incomplete, you had to return there, I can well understand the frustration. Myself, I've gone through some of it, maybe not on the scale of a returning Dominican, but the mere fact that some simple things take so long, and it is a deterrent, it can lead to frustration. And I indicated, although I said it even before 3rd November, and I must confess we've not gotten very far with it, but it is something that is on our agenda. Sometimes situations will arise where you may have administrative problems or differences that the general public may not know of, and certain decisions would have to be taken. At times some people feel, well, why not give every minute detail? Sometimes it is not always prudent to come out with every minute detail, and it may appear to be a mixed signal. But again, we want to be very cognizant of that.
Honorable Prime Minister, you know, Loda is one of the best spots for tourists. But we have the road going up to the lake, which is very bad. And like ministers come, they go, and they still come, and the road is always the same. So what are you planning on doing while you are in there?
That has been on the plans, even when we sourced assistance from the CDB. But government had to provide counterpart funds, and government has not been able to come up with the counterpart funds. However, we have tried our best to maintain the main road up to the junction as best as we could. And we are feverishly trying to put together the counterpart funds so that we can undertake that project.
Mr. Prime Minister, some of us are a bit concerned with the relationship with Libya. We know that Barbados spoke against it, Trinidad spoke against it, St. Lucia and Antigua refused to be part of it. What is Dominica's stand on it? Are they going into the deal with Libya regarding the bananas?
Regarding
the bananas?
bananas.
Yeah. Some of us are quite concerned about it, considering the present relationship with this part of the world and the rest of the world.
Okay, it is news to me that St. Lucia and Antigua are not part of it, because Antigua also received the $1 million as well. So,
well, tell me.
the thing about St.
Well,
Lucia.
I apologize.
Yes, but I will. It's good that it is coming up, because it must be in the minds of many people as well.
Yes, it is.
Let me just explain what happened. We have what is called the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the Council of Ministers called the Authority. We met, a decision was taken by everybody. Then the decision to travel, only one head of state expressed reservation, not because he didn't want to go, but because he had an internal problem, a domestic problem with someone who had links with that particular country. And that was expressed to all of us, that based on that, he will not be part of the team. Later, the Prime Minister of Antigua went on air and said he would rather have diplomatic relations first. But again, that was he as a head of state, head of government, making that statement. But it did not indicate that he didn't want to have relations. So the process went on. On the question of bananas, we cannot even meet our quota in the UK market. So we do not have any excess bananas to send to any other market. It was indicated that if we had that excess supply, Libya would have been interested in purchasing at even a better price. But we don't have it. And to answer you directly, if we had it, yes, we would sell it to them.
Okay, a follow-up question. May I have a follow-up question, please? Okay, well, we see the situation of the bananas now and where it's going. Do we have a contingency plan for when the banana situation falls flat? What are we going to do?
We believe we still have an opening. And if the industry is restructured as we've been aiming at, if it is privatized and the necessary action is taken, we believe that the level of productivity can be increased, because there are Dominican farmers who produce as many as 15 tons per acre and even more. So the potential exists. But to do that, we cannot rely on rain-fed production only. We have to introduce irrigation so that you can have that supply year-round. So if we can do that and we cut out the waste. You know, I indicated the whole question of the dependency syndrome. If you know somebody's giving you, you couldn't be bothered how you spend what they give you, because you know they'll be giving you. But when you know they're not going to be giving you, you have to pull up your socks and tighten your bootstraps. Then it is something different. And that is what we're going to deal with the banana industry. The number of growers will be reduced tremendously. In fact, they're targeting about 1,000 growers. But we are down to under 2,000. We're down all now to under 2,000 growers from the 7,000 in the heyday of bananas. In fact, 10 years ago, we had about 7,500 growers. Now we are down to under 2,000. And we believe if they are targeted, they are assisted. In fact, the process has started. The whole question of leaf spot control has been privatized, so that the unproductive farmers would not be engaged in production, so that a certain amount of expenditure would be incurred on the non or unproductive farmers. The hope for us is in the area of tourism and telecommunications, as I pointed out. If we can build our call centers, if we can promote Dominica and improve the various access to the sites, and we can really package our product, we believe that there is a certain amount of absorption that can take place in those two areas. Of course, we continue to invest heavily in human resource development. We continue. We have not slowed down. We have continued at a great pace.
Julian Leblanc, you make mention of the Telecommunication Act. I would like you to elaborate on the act, please, because I read last week that Marpin and Kiblan Wallace, they went into talks and the government was unaware of what was going on. I would like to know exactly what's been going on between these two companies.
You know, the process has been ongoing, and the OACS came together, established a reform project where the nitty-gritty of telecommunications would be looked at, and it reached an advanced stage whereby it had become very clear that that sector had to be liberalized. What was the hold-up then? The hold-up had been interconnection. With interconnection, it is left to the parties to negotiate. And if there is a stalemate, then ECTEL comes in to deal with the issue. And it appears that somehow there was some gray area, but it is now ironed out, and we would expect that the sector is fully liberalized by April of 2002.
Mr. Prime Minister, you spoke of, and we are well aware, being a fellow Dominican myself, that people at home have a sort of resentment and a negative feeling towards people who come to these parts of the world simply because they think that they have sold out and ran away. However, I'm saying, this is a suggestion, something we had discussed before in the whole political process at home. What about organizing and putting in place? I know it's difficult right now financially, but people here, I have a sense that people here would feel more responsible if they could take part also in the political process in terms of voting like in an absentee manner, absentee balloting. That would make the desire for them to contribute, knowing that they are part of that process, they would feel more confident, and I believe, that's just my thought, that more investments would come. Secondly, what about the name change for Dominica? Have we ever thought of that?
No.
Hold.
I disagree.
Hold. I know it might sound like something
disagree.
different, but Dominica was Whitey Kubuli before it was Dominica. And what is happening is, and you're correct, I have worked in somewhat with the NDC for a little while, and for sure there are a number of people, even in my everyday encounters with people who are tempted to go to the Commonwealth of Dominica, finding themselves in the Dominican Republic. It's just a suggestion. I didn't say you have to do it, but have you thought of a name change? Probably back to Whitey Kubuli Dominica. Thank you.
Thank you, Richo. Actually, my predecessor, the late Roosevelt Douglas, raised the issue of you voting out there, even before any thought was given as to what mechanism could be put in place for that. We have not started looking at it seriously, but this is something that's been coming up. We know for a fact that in some countries, it has really opened up a lot for electoral fraud. In others, they have controlled it. And therefore, it is something that we can always begin to look at And I'm not saying that's like a promise for something next year or next election, but we have to begin to look at it because it has been done successfully in some countries, but it has been a disaster in others. And it is something we can look at because we believe, I'm one of those who has been raising that as well as an issue, that we believe that Dominicans, we just have to find the proper mechanism so that they can participate in the process. On the other question that you raised, I was one of those before independence shouting that we should change the name to Whitey Kugule. I am now in the hot seat. And I've been experiencing, as I said, because a few years ago I was on a cruise to the Mediterranean, and when they asked for people from the Caribbean, I put my hand up. There were two of us, myself and someone from Montserrat, the then Chief Minister of Montserrat. And then they asked what country I came from. I said, Dominica. And the guy said, yeah. I've been there. And then he described himself as walking on the borders of Haiti. And Dominica is just not known at all. I was in Miami not too long ago, and even a police officer, when he saw my passport, he asked me, what country is this? And I told him Dominica. He simply replied, you have this one on me, buddy. And he has no idea where that Dominica is. So so we really have to package it. And Richo, it's something that, more Dominicans probably should talk about, the changing of the name. And we'd have to look at the whether there are complexities or difficulties in doing it. And we'd have to begin to address it.
Good evening, Honorable Pierre Charles. Earlier on you stated that the Dominican Republic is getting some form of credit when Dominica is mentioned. What steps is your government taking to take care of that problem? And second question, I have seen and heard a lot of commercials of other countries in the development of tourism. What plan your government could put together in terms of uplifting Dominica so that people in America listening to the news and looking at television can see Dominica for the beauty it is. And in that sense, we'll take the necessary steps to visit that island so that tourism could be developed at a higher standard.
I think I can roll both questions into one. The answer is promotion. We will be a beneficiary from funding for tourism promotion, $211,000 that will go towards promotion of Dominica. The problem has been one of resources. We've not been able to supply the office in New York with promotion material. If you go to NDC, there's draft there, no material, and because we don't have the resources. But as I indicated, that is our focus now, and that is the direction we want to go.
Yeah,
Which one?
I'm next.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Prime Minister Dean Moise. Mr. Prime Minister, back on the banana issue. I have understand that the banana industry has been running on a skeleton staff, so to speak. However, it has come to my attention that the banana industry is going to be turned into Dexter. I don't know how true is that. That is my first question, so if you could clarify that into me. So if that is the case, then what part does the farmers will play in the industry if Dexter take over? Secondly, on the question of scholarship, we are aware that the government have been giving people or young people to funds to go overseas and study and never return back home. My question is what type of mechanism that your government or your administration is going to put into place seeing that they have been funded by the government so that they could come back home and give their service back to the country. Thank you.
On the question of the banana industry, as the process of restructuring goes on, a new company has to be formed. And that company will consist of the farmers. They will be part, or they have been part of the process. They have not been left out. They have been brought on board so that they're fully aware of the process and what is going on. And the aim is to privatize the company by January 2002. Dexter is not taking over DBMs. It's a new company that will be formed, and Dexter will play its role in the whole question of market penetration and market promotion. On the other part of your question, we had a meeting with permanent secretaries and heads of division, and chairpersons and managers of statutory boards. And that question came up. When somebody is given assistance up to a certain amount, the person has to sign a bond. And when the person returns, if government is unable to provide employment, then government ought to free the person from that bond so that the person could seek employment. And I said ought to. But a number of people, I have raised that myself in public, that a number of people are assisted, they go away, and they do not return. And when the question came up, a suggestion came out that they must sue those people. But it is not a decision of government. It came up in the meeting. But we are discussing it because we are feeling it. Because with our meager resources, when we assist Dominicans, they acquire skills that would assist Dominica. But they choose not to come back and not to even make a financial contribution or to at least repay the debt that incurred on their behalf.
Honorable Prime Minister, my name is Alec Dover. I was born in the Pottersville area. Presently, I'm a teacher, and we get people to go down to Dominica, but everybody come back with the same report that Roseau is the worst part of Dominica. And it is, because you go and, to me, there was never change in that area, in Roseau. People have a different viewpoint on that. But what I'm saying, as soon as you get off the ship and you get into, there's not too much you can do when you step into Roseau. What is being done to help in that area? And secondly, also Portsmouth, why there is not more development within that area? Because to me, Portsmouth has more room for expansion as to Roseau. Because if you look at Roseau, the way how it is structured, the roads and everything, I born there, so I know. So, but everything is caved in. It looked like a big mall to me, so I'm saying, what are the plans that are contemplating in that area? Thank you.
So, my friend, you probably would have to suggest that we do some land reclamation and expand on the sea. Because Roseau is hemmed in. There is hardly anything you can do to open up Roseau again. Everywhere is totally taken up already. But the suburbs are being looked at, and that is where the question of investors coming in. And in conjunction with government, we would be looking at a more extensive plan for the development of the wider area. Portsmouth is a hub now. In fact, the Information and Communications Technology Center is being planned for Portsmouth. In fact, we have received an initial sum of money. It's not yet enough to build infrastructure, but we are looking at that center for PICAD. There are a number of other potential investors who have shown interest, but we're trying to find a suitable site for what they want to do. Since again, we have limitations based on the availability of the amount of space that they require. But Portsmouth is actively being looked at for development.
Honorable Prime Minister, you are looking at about 200 ambassadors and tourism promotions officer right in here. We are all aware, as you said, that we have meager resources for promotions, and we all have energies, contacts, and we do not want to waste any opportunity. In the past, government has promised to make available a liaison officer to deal with the diaspora. We may not be able to get directly to you, but we want someone that we can make contact with if we have an opportunity, if we have a question, a concern. I want to know, has that person been appointed? Do you intend to appoint that person? When can we get that information?
Some time ago, we brought down our heads of missions to have an extensive discussion on the new thrust for the various missions that we have. And that was one aspect of the discussion. I cannot tell you now the exact date, but here the permanent secretary is right here, Foreign Affairs Permanent Secretary. And we will pay prime attention to that, because it is part of the new thrust that we would want to see happening around where we have missions. And even to set up honorary councils in certain cities to undertake just what you're talking about, what you're referring to.
Missy Polito. Yes. Honorable Prime Minister, my name is...
Is the mic on?
My name is Lucia Belsuji. What I would ask from my name is Lucy Belsuji, and my question is, and I would have to say, from not only for myself, but so many other Dominicans I've been hearing talking about that same banana issue. They're saying that part of it I heard is that Dominicans' bananas, when you get to some part of Europe, it's turned very dark very quickly. And part of it, again, they're saying that they're asking for too much money on bananas of the farmers. And they decide, I think, from the time they had, I think, that WTO, World Trade Organization, sometime in Seattle, I think all of this was part of the same talk about bananas, where they're going to be getting it much cheaper, which when they went into the Latin American to start getting the bananas. And this is one of the reasons I've been hearing all these bananas, bananas, bananas. But the problem is, it seems like no one can really solve Dominican's problem with bananas, because it's not only from you alone, it comes from many other prime ministers who've been